Hi and welcome to Meet the Professionals. This is a series where I sit down with various people from various industries to find out a bit more about what they do. Today I'm sat with Kerry, who is the Senior Comms Manager at nDreams. Hi Kerry.
Hello.
I thought we could start off today by you just telling us a bit more about your job role and sort of what you do day to day.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm the Senior Comms Manager at nDreams, a virtual reality game development studio. Basically, I look after all the public relations and the media side of things, the social media side of things, and our community. I look after that for all the games that we develop and for nDreams as a company itself.
Oh, okay, so sort of the promotion and the kind of getting it out there and things like that.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Nice. What's your working environment like? I spoke to another member of your team and she sort of said you're sort of based in an office. Is it a similar kind of situation for you?
Normally, yes. Obviously, at the moment, we're all working from home. So we've got a team of about I think we're just over 100 people now, which is the game developers. We are normally office-based. My department is part of the publishing team, so we look after all the marketing and the communications. There's about 6 of us. And yeah, normally we are in an office. We sit very close to the dev team though, which does help us throughout the job that we do. Yeah, at the moment we're all in our lounge or living rooms or bedrooms or
anywhere there's space.
Yes, exactly.
How did you get into the role you're in now? Did you sort of work in games and then sort of get into the more PR side, or have you always been sort of PR focused and then happened to work for a games company?
I was more PR I did my degree in media communications, and then I sort of fell into games as an industry because I started working as a marketing assistant for a distribution company, actually they were just down the road in Basingstoke at the time, and kind of just from there I loved the industry. It was a really great time to be in the industry. It's we sort of, I won't disclose my age quite so much, but it was very exciting times. And just sort of stayed in it really. I was lucky enough to have someone that sort of took me under their wing and really helped me with the PR side of things, which is then where my career went, sort of because of them really, just helping me understand much more about the PR side of things and then working with the journalists, etc. So it's a bit of a combination of falling into video games and then just really enjoying the industry and the work and the games. So
okay, nice. For the sort of more PR side of things, you mentioned you sort of went to university. Do you need qualifications to get to sort of the level you're at, or is it a mixture of qualifications, experience, or up to the individual and the company that you're at?
It's really up to the individual, I think, in terms of anything PR related and communications side of things. There's obviously degrees and diplomas and all sorts of things that you can do. But that's not to say that some of the best people I've worked with in PR, they don't have any formal qualifications at all. They just love the industry. They love social media or PR side of things, and then they've worked their way up through to being heads of PR, etc. Because they've got a real passion for. Generally, it's because they've got a real passion for what they're talking about, and they've got a real knowledge of the subject. So that's not to say. I think in some companies, I think they still do prefer you to have a qualification, and those are available, but it's definitely not a necessity, I don't think, for this kind of role.
Okay, nice. What's your favourite aspect of your job? What do you sort of enjoy the most about what you do?
Talking to people. Obviously in a communications role you need to talk to people, and that's sort of talking to everyone. That's talking to the media, the journalists, that's talking to our consumers, so all the people that we engage with on our social channels, and talking to people in the industry as well. So at various points in my career I've worked within a development team like I am at the moment, or on a more publishing side of things, which is where you're slightly separate from the guys who make the game. But it's great to talk to those guys as well. So definitely talking to people. Bit of a weird one at the moment, but the events side of things has always been good fun as well. Unfortunately, we've not been able to do any this year. which is really sad, but it's really good sort of planning those events and seeing people play your game for the first time as well. Just that kind of thing is really good fun.
Nice. Okay, that leads me quite nicely on to what sort of skills would a person need, both personal and practical, to sort of work in PR, whether that's particularly in games or just sort of generally. You mentioned communication, but what other things?
Yeah, so I think PR is quite a varied role, communications, but one of the things obviously is to be a good communicator, and that works across all levels. You know, you do have to, or you will find it easier when you can talk to people from different levels. You know, in my role in particular, I deal with everyone from the CEO of the company to the junior artists, etc., etc. So, you know, it's great to be able to talk to everyone and be able to have that sort of ability to do so. That comes with experience as well, though. So, you know, you don't have to feel you can do that straight away. I find you do have to be organised. We're quite often up against deadlines, and you have to be able to prioritise your work as well and what's most important for that day. And I think something that's sort of possibly a bit quite unique to a comms and social media role is where you have to be able to keep a cool head and let some things just slide right off your shoulders. You know, you can't, there's some interesting characters out there in the world, and you can't take stuff to heart too much. You know, it's an interesting place to be at the moment, especially with everything that's been going on in the media, and you know, the whole social aspect of Black Lives Matter, etc. So it's having that responsibility as well as a external facing person to make sure that you're comfortable in those sort of roles as well.
And sort of, I guess, clued up on what is going on.
Absolutely.
On appropriately on behalf of the company and all those kind of things. Yeah,
definitely. I think that's one of the really big things. One of the things that I do every day is check first thing when I come into my office, my room. You know, we check through our social channels, check through the media news for that day, not just the likes of the BBC, but obviously the gaming news, the VR news, and everything. Just making sure you're up to speed on everything that's going on in the world and in your industry as well. So that's a really.
And I guess as well that plays a part in sort of saying, you know, people who are really passionate about what they do. Obviously, you've got to kind of be on the ball with what's happening, you know, like you say, worldwide, that person within the industry, so that, you know, an interest, so that you can sort of scout out that information, I guess.
Yes, definitely. It definitely helps. I mean, I wasn't a gamer when I came into games, and then for me, virtual reality is another new area of games that I've only come into in the past 3 years-ish. So, you know, I've had to learn the sites and stuff to go to and the places to find out those news and everything. So
okay, nice. What would you say is your biggest achievement, or what are you most proud of? Something project you've worked on, or, you know, something with the team? What are you most proud of in your job?
So actually, it's quite a timely one to ask that. We so our latest game, I'm going to sound like I'm on a PR spiel here, but genuinely, Phantom comes out next week. And that game has just gone, what we say has just gone gold. So it's just been approved for launch next week. So that's the first game that I've worked on with nDreams. So that's a really proud moment. It's just to sort of know that it's there. It's gone through everything it needs to do. The team has done an amazing job of developing it, and it's really, really nice and exciting to work on a title that is as good as Phantom is, because it's quite groundbreaking for a virtual reality title. That's a really proud moment. There's been lots of games I've worked on. I'm always proud of the game when it comes out. So this is a really nice one to be working on now.
And I guess with this kind of line of work, you know, so much goes into the making, the preparation, the promotion, and then to finally sort of let it go. It would be great. And like you say, then you get to interact with people afterwards and sort of see.
You feel quite so it's one part of being the sort of the comms role as well, is that you feel quite responsible for the dev team. Obviously make the game, they do all the really hard work in terms of, you know, coding and designing, artists, you know, they do all of that. you feel quite a responsibility to make sure that you do that game justice when you're speaking to the media and across social media, and creating that content that really shows off that game, or the messaging that shows off that game to the best light, because that's what we do in a comms role. You know, you've got all of these people that have done this incredible work there, and you want to really make sure that you've got that right for their sake as well.
Yeah. Okay, nice. What piece of advice would you give to someone who is considering kind of getting into the, you know, comms role, whether it's PR, social media, all those kind of things, and whether that's within the game industry or just sort of as a whole? What piece of advice would you give to someone?
I think we sort of mentioned it before, but it's certainly consuming as much as you can media-wise across social media, etc., for the area that you think you might like to go into. So obviously from my side, it's video games and virtual reality. It just gives you that head start as to, you know what's already going on. Become involved in the community side of things as well. Certainly gaming's got a huge community. The nice communities around gaming, I'll just add that bit in. And, try and get that work experience is always really helpful. There's quite a few places do kind of offer internships and work experience. And then something I found really useful is finding someone to mentor you, or just to help you along, which I think is a bit easier to do now. I think people are more aware of what a mentor system is. There's various, for everything, for gaming design, for game development, and for PR, etc. There are various things you can look at online that just kind of hook you up with people, or asking, I guess, people like yourselves whether they know anyone that can kind of help be hooked up with someone from a video game developer or a PR person or something. So take advantage of the resources that are available to you through your college, or through the internet and stuff as well, just to make sure you've got that. A lot of it's about networking and then talking to the people that you've got access to.
Yeah, and then I guess once you go through that mentoring thing, there is a lot of scope to kind of find your feet and sort of see, what aspects you want to potentially do or not, kind of thing. So yeah, definitely.
And there's events and things as well that will kind of help you on your way, or just becoming involved in stuff. So that's what I'd say.
Nice. Okay, my last question for you, Kerry. Where do you see the gaming industry in sort of 5 to 10 years' time? Do you see it changing much, adapting? And we'll talk about it generally, but then also your role specifically, do you see that changing much as well?
So I think gaming is always going to be here. It's a huge market. It's bigger than film, TV, movies and stuff. I think people don't actually realise how much that it kind of contributes to GDP and everything. It's a massive, massive industry. So it's definitely not going anywhere. It will change in 5 to 10 years, because we think, obviously, we're a virtual reality developer. VR is going to get bigger. We're at a really exciting time in VR. We've had the first proper standalone headset release in form of the Oculus Quest. That's a real kind of leap in the right direction for VR becoming mass market and everyone being able to access, kind of the technology. We're not quite there in terms of people. I think people will want to wear glasses, just be able to pop on glasses rather than a headset. There's various tech things like 5G, etc. All these things are going to help move VR into mainstream. And then now we're also starting to see the likes of some really big IP coming into VR, like Half-Life, etc. That's only going to contribute to more people wanting to adopt the technology, etc. So I think, a lot more games are going to be in VR. I think you're going to see a lot more people playing VR games. And then in terms of my role specifically, it's all going to be virtual. It's all going to be virtual reality. Actually, I think, I think what's happened over the past few months in terms of COVID, etc., has made us think about how we work in terms of communications and in terms of events, because we've not been able to do any events, and that's a big part of our calendar. Things like E3, we sort of often show off first look at games and things at events like E3 or the EGX Gaming Expos. They've not happened, so we've had to relook at how we do our marketing, right through from online events through to talking to the likes of you guys. You know, all of our dev interviews have been on Zoom or on Teams, etc. So, you know, I think those kind of things will change the way we market and we do our communications and PR in the future as well. That's not to say that there's not going to be events and stuff. I think there's always room for those things, and they're important. But yeah, I think it will be a very different landscape. I think a lot of it will be VR related, and certainly maybe more remote. But yes, that's one thing that I've loved about being in the industry, is that games has also always been at the cutting edge of technology.
Yeah.
No, I kind of feel like we're always slightly ahead of a lot of other mediums in terms of what we do, how we do it, you know, across the marketing and the comms sort of spectrum. So, you know, it would be interesting to see where we are in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, like you say, you might be just a little chunk ahead of what others are doing, because where it changes so quickly as well. So it's exciting. There's a lot of scope for, like you say, it doesn't mean moving into virtual stuff doesn't mean the in live stuff's not going to happen. So there's almost more opportunity, you know, for people who are, you know, considering it or thinking of getting into industry. Which
definitely.
Perfect. Well, Kerry, thank you so much for chatting today. That was really useful. Really great to hear about what you do. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments and we will get back to you. And stay tuned for more. See you later.
Thank you. Bye.